everyone. Welcome to the 2025 PACMRI Masterclass webinar series. While we wait for the program to officially begin, let me share some quick reminders. Kindly make sure that your audio is on mute and your video is turned off once you enter the room. You may use the chat box to send in your questions. Later on, during the open forum, you may also use the raise hand function if you wish to ask your questions live. And most importantly, let us all be respectful and mindful throughout the session. We will begin in just a moment. Thank you. Once again, a pleasant, friendly reminder for everyone. Kindly make sure that your audio is on mute and your video is turned off. You may use the chat box to send in your questions, and later on during the open forum, you may also use the raise hand function if you wish to ask your questions live. Most importantly, let us all be respectful and mindful throughout the session. Thank you.
Guys,
Oh,
Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the Philippine Association for Communication and Media Research Incorporated, or PACMRI, welcome to our 2025 Masterclass webinar series. Our third masterclass is titled Cultural Science in Changing Times, D and Reconstructing Language and Heritage in Pampanga. From Facebook images to food traditions to shifting vocabulary, Pampanga's cultural signs are changing, but they're far from lost. This masterclass explores the evolving heritage of Pampanga through three compelling lenses from scholars and researchers who live and breathe Pampanga. Disclaimer: the views and opinions expressed in this webinar are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent. A reminder for everyone, please make sure that your audio is on mute and your video is turned on. You may make use of the Zoom chat box or Q&A function to ask questions to the speakers. Your questions will be then answered shortly. You may also use the raise your hand function, and once acknowledged, you may unmute yourself, turn your camera on, and provide a quick intro, and then ask your question. A participant is entitled to asking one relevant question. You are expected to stay inside the Zoom room until and after the group photo op. Again, this is the masterclass entitled Cultural Signs in Changing Times, D and Reconstructing Language and Heritage in Pampanga. For the opening remarks, please welcome Chen San Pascual, the PAC-MRI President.
Hi, good afternoon everyone. Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. Welcome to the third session of this year's PAC-MRI Masterclass Series. PAC-MRI, or the Philippine Association for Communication and Media Research Incorporated, is a University of the Philippines-based non-stock organization that aims to advance knowledge in communication and media phenomena involving the Filipinos and the Philippines. We are fairly young, founded in 2019 by the University of the Philippines Department of Communication Research. PAC-MRI envisions a knowledge-based society that values, uses, and innovates communication and media research. PAC-MRI endeavors to promote the systematic study of developments, changes, and challenges in Philippine communication and media, to contribute to enhancing the competencies of local communication and media researchers in conducting and disseminating scholarly works, and to facilitate the engagement of communication and media research practitioners and institutions in Philippine society. The PAC-MRI Masterclass Series, one of our flagship projects, aims to expound on the various philosophical, contextual, and practical concerns that inform and elevate the studies that we conduct. We at PAC-MRI hope that the series results in a vibrant and rigorous communication and media research culture in our country. This afternoon's masterclass session is part of our continuing collaboration with the Angeles University Foundation, PAC-MRI's valued and ever-supportive institutional partner. Our colleagues from AUF will share their insights on how Pampanga's heritage is being negotiated in our evolving communication and media landscape. So please invite your peers to join us. They can still log in and catch up. And by the way, all our online masterclass sessions are available in PAC-MRI's digital platforms. And these are accessible for free, and you are all welcome to view and to share our content. Mabuhay ang pananaliksik at mga mananaliksik ng komunikasyon at media. Let us all have an engaging afternoon. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chen. Now we will be proceeding to the masterclass proper. Before I introduce our first speaker, I would like to acknowledge the presence of the Dean of the College of Education of AUF, Jennifer Santillan, and the Assistant Dean, Christian Don Aviado. Good afternoon po.
Good afternoon po.
Our first masterclass speaker is Mr. Chris M. Balingit, MC, LPT. Mr. Chris is a full-time college instructor and academic affairs associate at the City College of San Fernando, Pampanga. He previously taught communication courses and served as the academic chairperson of the University of the Assumption for 8 years. He is also a part-time college instructor at Angeles University Foundation. Currently, he is pursuing his Doctor of Philosophy in Communication at the Polytechnic University of the Philippines, where he also earned his master's degree in communication in 2017. He graduated with a Bachelor of Arts major in Mass Communication at Angeles University Foundation in 2010. Before entering the world of academia, he had extensive experience in the broadcast media industry, having worked both in radio and television. He was a seasoned writer and producer for Central Luzon TV 36 or CLTV 36. Moreover, he produced DWBL 91.9 Bright FM's Ngamupaya, a radio program aimed to discuss the relevant and current issues faced by the youth, which he also co-hosted. We are privileged to hear Mr. Chris talk about resiliency in the Filipino context, a visual analysis of Facebook image trends. Let us give him a warm round of virtual applause.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you po, ma'am, for the warm introduction. And let me share my presentation first. Can you hear me clearly po?
Yes, sir, loud and clear.
Thank you. Can you hear the audio?
Yes po, sir. We can
Okay, thank you. So, once again, good afternoon. Allow me to share this short video before I will present my research paper. Please watch. So, we have seen the video. I just want to share why I chose to begin with this. Every time kasi I encounter scenes like this, whether online or in real life, I feel a mix of familiarity and discomfort. Familiar because these situations have almost become part of our lived reality as Filipinos. Let us admit it, no? Recently lang nakaranas tayo ng ganyan. And uncomfortable because they remind me how easily we scroll past these images and label them as resilience. Watching this clip again makes me pause and reflect on how we as a society have learned to accept these moments as normal, even expected. And that realization is what motivated me to pursue this research paper. So I wanted to understand why this visual trend so quickly, why people respond to them the way they do, and what deeper messages they carry about who we are and how we cope. So this video, it's not just an introduction. This is a starting point of the questions that led me to examine how resiliency is portrayed in Filipino social media spaces and what those portrayals mean for our culture, our narratives, and our expectation during times of crisis. So this study is guided by a central question: how is resiliency depicted in trending Facebook posts within the Filipino context? So the goal is to understand how images do more than show events. They communicate meaning, shape public sentiment, and reinforce cultural values. Through this question, we analyze both the visual elements of the images and the social interpretations that audiences attach to them. So the analysis draws from Kress and Van Leeuwen 1996 social semiotic framework, particularly the representational structures that reveal how images construct meaning. So this approach focuses on identifying narrative representations which highlight action and events. And the other one is the conceptual representations which show more symbolic or generalized ideas. Using this lens allows us, or using this lens, it allows us to use or to see not only what the images depict, but also what cultural and ideological messages they communicate. So that is the framework that I have used. No? And the trending image featured in this research paper garnered over 1,200 likes, 63 comments, and more than 1,800 shares. No, and it was being posted July 2024, during the time when Typhoon Karina hit the Philippines. So these would be the results of my visual analysis. The first slide or the first image of a kalesa, navigating floodwaters, presents a blend of traditions and crisis. Narratively, you can see passengers being transported through a flooded urban area. Conceptually, however, it highlights the enduring relevance of traditional practices in modern settings. The kalesa becomes a symbol of continuity and resilience, reflecting how Filipinos rely on both heritage and adaptability when facing environmental challenges. The next image, two young girls in flood. The image of these two young girls standing in flooded environment shows a narrative of innocence amid adversity. So their expressions reflect calmness, trust, or quiet optimism despite the difficult situation. On a conceptual level, this reinforces the importance of familial bonds in Filipino culture. So the girls represent shared strength and solidarity, suggesting that resilience is often rooted in family relationships and emotional support systems. Another picture from this post would be the young men on improvised raft. Okay, as you can see, these are young men floating on a makeshift raft, one even drinking, probably it's an alcoholic beverage, captures the diversity of coping mechanisms during floods. Narratively, it shows action and resourcefulness as they navigate the waters. Conceptually, it illustrates how people respond to crisis in different ways, ranging from serious problem solving to moments of escapism. So this image emphasizes the resilience is not always solemn. Sometimes it includes humor, distraction, or unconventional ways of dealing with stress. Another image is the people waiting with Philippine flag. Is that the right image? Okay. I think yes. The image of a group wading through flood waters while the Philippine flag appears in the background creates a powerful narrative of collective struggle. So as you can see, it visually communicates themes related to inadequate urban infrastructure and recurring climate-related issues. At the same time, the presence of the flag evokes national unity and perseverance. So the combination of hardship and symbolism reflects how resilience is tied to Filipino identity, even as it simultaneously critiques systematic shortcomings. Another image is a mobile food cart at risk in flood waters, highlights the vulnerability of small businesses. While narrative shows a simple bread vendor navigating a difficult situation, the conceptual message naman reveals the fragile state of livelihood for many Filipinos. This means floods not only disrupt mobility, but also jeopardize income, illustrating how economic instability can contribute to broader challenges during natural disasters. Same with this is a vendor riding with kolong-kolong. So we use that term, no, for a tricycle that has a wheeler. The vendor using a kolong-kolong during flood represents economic struggle and determination. Narratively, as you can see, the individual continues working despite hazardous condition. Conceptually, the image symbolizes the tenacity that characterizes many Filipino workers who cannot afford to pause their livelihoods even in emergencies. It only reflects that resilience born out of necessity, a pragmatic and often underappreciated aspect of day-to-day survival. Second, hindi pa, the second to the last. The next slide or the next visuals or visual or image is people using improvised transportation to navigate floodwaters. It only reveals that both hardships and ingenuity. On the narrative side, they depict movement. Conceptually, these visuals reflect the dual nature of crisis. Hang on. Okay. They expose systematic problems while creating opportunities for innovation. The portrayal underscores how resilience often emerges from creativity and collaborative problem solving. This one, there are two individuals riding a motorcycle with a proper rain gear, demonstrate a form of resilience rooted in preparedness. As you can see, it shows them braving the flooding with determination. Conceptually, it emphasizes self-reliance rather and practical readiness. So this image suggests that resilience is not only reactive, but also be proactive. It can also be proactive, relying on the foresight and the willingness to adapt the unpredictable conditions. And the next image, same with the other, the image of young and older men on an improvised raft highlights intergenerational cooperation. So as you can see, the picture shows them jointly navigating a flooding area. Conceptually, it symbolizes community resourcefulness and shared responsibility. Pag sinabi natin shared responsibility, there is a collaborative dynamic, no, that reflects the cultural value of bayanihan, where people come together regardless of their age to support one another during crisis. And the last image is a blue track with a text on it, gift of God. So the truck labeled Gift of God, moving through floodwaters, provide a visual link between faith and resilience. Narratively, it shows perseverance in transportation despite harsh conditions. But conceptually, it captures how spiritually shapes Filipino responses to adversity. The message on the truck suggests that for many, faith serves not only as comfort, but also a source of strength and motivation during challenging times. I also included, even though it's a visual analysis, I cannot contain myself to include the textual analysis. Pag context analysis consists of the comments being posted in being commented, or the message being commented in this post. So these are the following themes. Comments from Facebook users reveal dissatisfaction with the repeated framing of disasters as examples of Filipino resilience. So many interpret such captions as excuses that divert attention from government responsibilities, particularly regarding the infrastructure, the flood control project, disaster preparedness, and long-term solutions. So this critic highlights the tension between celebrating resilience and recognizing systemic failures, which suggests that resilience narrative may unintentionally normalize suffering or lower public expectations for accountability. To summarize the themes, so number one, I have this one, blending tradition and modernity. So traditional transportation methods like kalesa continue to play a role in modern crisis management. The sight of historic vehicle navigating contemporary challenges highlights the enduring relevance of traditional practices. So the image of two girls in figure 2 clearly portrays the strong familial ties, typical of Filipino families, emphasizing trust and positive outlook in the face of adversity. Theme number 3, which is coping mechanism. There are various individual responses to crisis, ranging from serious effort to navigate improvised rafts to moments of escapism through drinking, reflecting the diverse ways of people manage and receive environmental challenges. The fourth theme, economic vulnerability. This is the impact of flooding on small businesses, such as mobile food carts, underscoring the economic struggles faced during natural disasters. Another thing, community and resourcefulness, young and older individuals on an improvised raft, showcasing the importance of intergenerational support and creative problem solving in the face of environmental challenges. So number 6, divine protection and faith is the next theme. The text Gift of God on delivery truck image number 10 symbolizes the role of faith and spirituality in coping with crisis. And there is a dissatisfaction with the narrative of resilience. So the comment expressed collective discontentment with the images presented in the trending post. Facebook users interpret the caption witnessing resilience as an excuse for negligence or even failures of government officials. So this is the following things. Conclusively, the collection of images reveals 7 overarching themes: blending tradition and modernity, familial bands, coping mechanism, economic vulnerability, community resourcefulness, faith-driven resilience, and dissatisfaction with how resilience is being framed. So these themes collectively portray resilience as multifaceted concept that ranges from emotional and spiritual strength to economic struggle and creative survival strategies. At the same time, they reflect a growing public awareness that resilience should not overshadow the need for structural improvements and governmental accountability. And the recommendations I have included in my research paper, future research on resiliency narrative should examine not only Facebook, but also other social media platforms, specifically TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, where visual storytelling rapidly evolves. It would also be beneficial to explore how influencers and public figures shape or reinforce these narratives. Additionally, incorporating qualitative methods such as interviews or focus groups can provide deeper insight into how Filipinos interpret these images and how they personally define resilience in their own lives. I think that would be the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for listening.
Okay, thank you very, very much for a very interesting sharing, Mr. Chris. I know that our audience members have some burning questions, but we'll have to wait until the open forum to ask these. For now, kindly place your questions in the Q&A feature of this session if you have some questions, and we'll make sure to read it later on. Thank you very much, Mr. Chris. Now, let's move on to the next speaker. The next speaker is Dame Avelino, an assistant professor in the Department of Communication, College of Arts and Sciences of the Angeles University Foundation. They graduated with a master's degree in communication at the University of Santo Tomas, and currently, Dame is serving as the PAC-MRI Board Secretary. Here's Dame with her topic, Apag Angeleños, Constructing the Culinary Image of Angeles City.
Hi, good afternoon. Let me share my screen. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Thank you. So yeah, good afternoon again. I'm the second speaker for this masterclass webinar, and the title of my presentation is Apag Angeleños, Constructing the Culinary Image of Angeles City. So first of all, I would like to thank PAC-MRI for giving Angeles University Foundation a platform to share our communication and media research in public. I would also like to thank everyone from AUF, students and faculty alike, as well as Ma'am Jen, Dean of Education, and Sir Christian Don, Assistant Dean of Education, Ma'am Bernadette Dalusung, the Chair of Social Sciences, for attending and participating in this webinar. I'm also thankful to Sir Chris and Sir Ariel for accepting our invitation to speak today in this masterclass series. Okay, so first a question. What do you think of whenever you hear Angeles City? So ano ang naiisip nyo pag naririnig nyo ang Angeles City? So you can type your answer in the chat box if you like. Sisig. Okay. Sisig. Sisig lang ba? Cafe. Isamban Maragul. Busy streets and yummy food. Okay. Thank you, Sir Christian, and food, of course po. Thank you so much po for your answers, especially my second year students. Okay. Sige, since food naman halos yung mga sagot, so of course, this topic is also about food. So recently, or in recent years, one of the most prominent things we hear about Angeles City is food. So as part of Pampanga and thus the Kapampangan heritage, Angeles City is considered as one of the prime locations for food tripping. Kapampangans are known to be good and innovative cooks, and Angeles City for the past decade has been promoting itself as a dining destination. So this is partly because of the city's history and darker reputation, especially during the time when the US established a military base in Clark. Since the 2010s, Angeles City has aspired to shed off its darker reputation and tout itself its culinary endeavors. So embracing the culture and the culinary, Angeles City through the leadership of then Mayor Carmelo Pogi Lasatin and the Angeles City Tourism Office arm. It has begun its gastro-tourism project, showcasing what the city can offer as a food site. So included in the project are media production from the local government, introducing different cuisines, restaurants, coffee shops, and others, and then posting these videos in their official social media platforms, especially in Facebook. Others are about cooking exhibitions, participation in food exhibits in different countries, and so on and so forth. So this one, you can consider as any of the following. So food tourism, culinary tourism, or gastronomy tourism. Is there a difference among the three? So according to Putra 2021, while food, culinary, and gastronomy highlight the cooking, the experience, and the place, culinary tourism emphasizes the cooking, whereas gastronomy tourism includes its culture and history. So food tourism, however, encompasses all aspects of foods and its heritage and experience. So these three, though they can cover both the perspectives of the tourists and the host destinations, I'm more interested in the ways the host destination, Angeles City in this case, utilizes media to market itself, to portray itself in a particular way to its audience. So this study is still a work in progress. So for this presentation, I'd like to focus on a particular series. So between May 2022 and January 2023, the Angeles City Local Government and its Tourism Office launched GINA, the Gastro Angeles Tour, a vlog series featuring different dining spots in Angeles City. Hosted by influencer GRS Guerra, each episode focuses on a type of dining experience and features different restaurants and places you can visit in Angeles City. So this vlog series was posted on the Angeles City Tourism Office Facebook page during the time when the city was opening itself again after the COVID lockdown. So I'm focusing on this vlog series because while there had been other media that highlight Angeles City as a gastro destination, this one was produced by the local government, and it covered a lot of the things that the LGU wanted to emphasize about Angeles City as a site for dining experience. Simply put, I'd like to explore what kinds of image Angeles City, this LGU-produced vlog series specifically, depicts itself when it comes to food. So I'm looking at this. These are the episodes of the series. So I'm looking at this from what Lai, Kula Timur, and Wang refer to as destination brand image. So this pertains to the perception of brand in terms of its qualities and associations. So Angeles City as a brand when it comes to food and cuisine, as the two are contributing elements of destination brand image. So Lai, Kula Timur, and Wang proposed a framework for food and cuisine image, and it has three components: the cognitive, the affective, and conative. Cognitive image is more on the knowledge about food and cuisine, the aspects of the food representing the place. It also can be about a person's knowledge and perception about the food. Cognitive image has 6 dimensions: place and geographic environment, food and cuisine culture, food and people, food quality, dining places and restaurants, and food activities. Affective image, meanwhile, is about the feelings, the emotions, and evaluations of a person, the motivational factors to visit a place and experience their food, the person's belief and attitudes towards such. It's also the symbolic and experiential values. Conative image is the revisiting quality of the place. Will a tourist come back to this place to repeat the food experience? Those kinds of questions. So it's more of a behavioral component. So based on this framework, the cognitive image component is is so far useful for studying the vlog series. Ito lang siya. Affective and conative components focus more on the people, But since I chose the vlog series, a text, so to speak, the cognitive image is the more applicable element of the conceptual model. So far, I applied the framework for the vlog episodes through textual analysis, utilizing the 6 dimensions under the cognitive image component as codes. So here are my initial findings, not yet comprehensive. So broadly speaking, Angeles City paints itself to be a place where food is a lifestyle. It's a place that offers a variety of dining experience, quality in its taste and aesthetics, with pride in its history. So in terms of place and geographic environment, more than the food locally produced, this also included the traditions and knowledge of the locale, from growing food and then turning it into cuisine. In Gina, their closing tagline emphasizes supporting local. This is supported by several of the featured dining places that describe the traditional and exacting ways they prepare their food, as well as using locally grown ingredients such as Capebalwan's coffee beans, which are grown by the Ayeta community in Sapang Bato, for example. Another, in food and cuisine culture, variety and presentation are important. A variety of choices for eating are immediately emphasized, as evidenced by the different kinds of dining featured per episode. For food, its attractiveness can be about the popularity and reputation itself, as well as how it's presented to the diners. So I would also like to stress that many of these featured places, 6 out of 8 episodes, highlight their ties with history and cultural heritage. So the name, for example, Toto Bits sa Nepo, came from Makatoto Bitis, because historically the chairs in their food stalls were tall, that the feet were left hanging. Steakhouses, karinderya, sweet shops, and even coffee shops, plenty of them employ recipes and cooking techniques that were passed down to generations. Cool Spot, for example, began around the time of World War II. Siglo Poblacion, as another example, is a coffee shop in the heritage area, and the ambience of the place makes you feel like you're living in history as well. So regarding food and people, food is a local lifestyle. As Kapampangans are known to be great cooks, food and cuisine is very much tied to their identity. Again, like heritage, many of these dining places started out as family endeavors. Quality dishes created from family recipes, very much evidenced in the Carinderia and Sweets episodes. Home as the beginning of cuisine, as Doreen Fernandez had said. Next one is food quality. So attributes to this dimension include the sensory quality or tastiness of the food, quality label, safety and hygiene, healthiness and nutrition, the ingredients used, and price value. So all episodes highlight the tastiness of the food. Although there are evidently many dining places here in Angeles City, the featured ones are those with long-standing reputation, maybe even considered as institutions, widely popular and have delicious food. All have been featured tantalizingly, making you hungry, to be honest. And the host and the guest hosts are featured to be eating the dishes and commenting on their flavor, many at affordable prices. Another, dining places and restaurants. So this is more about the dining environment itself. In the series, each episode features different kinds of dining experience and places. So variety and diversity are given. Eating here is an experience. You don't just eat in many dining places in Angeles City, you can also participate in different kinds of engagements too. Many of these dining places integrate other activities that people can enjoy and avail, such as Steak Street Restaurant, playing live bands. There are also coffee shops that are integrated with another kind of service. For example, there are cafes such as Infusions, Calle, Siglo Poblacion, and La Princesa with coffee, workshops, workout gym, artisanal barber shops, cats, and beauty salon, respectively. So Cuento Cafe, meanwhile, engages with its customers through stories and conversations. Toto Bits and food stalls during Christmas offer food experience that that are socially and traditionally grounded. So the last dimension is food activities. So there are a number of food-related activities here in Angeles City, such as the Sisig Festival, but it's not much featured in the vlog series. However, the way Gina unfolds throughout the episodes, it feels like a food tour, which encourages people to go on a food trip. Locations are provided in the post captions so that viewers can know where to go and how to plan for their food trip. Other food-related activity attribute is cooking classes. Though not exactly cooking, one featured cafe, again, Infusions, offer coffee workshops for those who are interested in coffee. So these 6 dimensions and their attributes of cognitive image component make up what Lai, Kula Timur, and Wang, citing Lin et al., call as a framework of an identity of food in relation to a destination. Angeles City, based on this dimension and attributes, uses local food production whenever able, offers a variety of dishes and food experience with quality taste and reasonable prices. A lot of these places and food have historical richness, strengthening the city's cultural heritage. It's not just the food that's appealing. Many of these dining places also offer unique and interesting ambience and activities for people as individuals, as families, as friends, as group, as a communal experience to enjoy. Ultimately, Angeles City presents itself as a gastro hub, a place where locals and tourists alike can gain meaningful experiences. As closing, I'd like to quote Edilberto Alegre in his and Doreen Fernandez's book Sarap on eating and as food. So we do not simply ingest our environment. We dance to it, dance with it, sing to it, caress it. We are in awe of it and respectful towards it. Eating is not just ingestion. Eating is the occasion for the rites and rituals of our lives. Eating is praxis in social amenities. Eating is a language that speaks of the nuances of what we are. Eating is making alive the various and variegated conjugations of our lives. Food and cuisine are integral parts of cultural heritage and identity. Angeles City embraces and celebrates this, makes this as a significant part of what it shows itself to the region, the country, and the world. Thank you very much and good afternoon. Thank you.
Wow, grabe. Ibang-iba talaga ang food scene ng Pampanga. Na nakakatakam.
Sana po nabusog kayo.
Sana one of these days, no, ang Michelin makarating na rin sa Pampanga para the world gets to see what Pampanga has to offer. Bago pa kami tuluyang magutom, thank you very much, Dame. Let's hear from our third and final speaker, Dr. Ariel T. Gutierrez. Dr. Ariel is one of the arts and culture researchers of Angeles University Foundation. He is a cultural mapper, a lecturer, a correspondent writer in a local journal, a paper writer, and a presenter in national and international research colloquia. At present, he is the chair of Integrated Arts Department of the Integrated School. He finished his Doctor of Philosophy in Education, major in Educational Management at Angeles University Foundation in 2012. Let us now hear Dr. Ariel share his findings on the dynamics of Kapampangan vocabulary in the digital age. Give a warm round of applause, a virtual round of applause for Dr. Ariel.
Thank you very much, ma'am. I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me po?
Yes, sir, loud and clear.
Thank you. Thank you, PACMRI, for the invitation. Thank you, Ma'am Dane, for the invitation. So let me start with my presentation. and I will be presenting to you, and the title is The Dynamics of Kapampangan Vocabulary in Digital Age. Kapampangan refers to both language and the people residing in central plains of Luzon in the country called Philippines. Most of the speakers of Kapampangan language are found from Pampanga, parts of Tarlac, and the boundaries of Nueva Ecija, Bulacan, and Bulacan provinces. It is one of the major languages. In the country, and represents cultural heritage and tradition. However, like any other languages in the world, Kapampangan is susceptible to shift change and evolution. Its transformation was influenced by different factors such as cultural change and belief system, socio-linguistic and political dynamics, and technological and industrial advancement. The Kapampangan language has also absorbed elements from various colonial influences from the Spanish, Japanese, and American occupation in the country. It also been shaped by factors like education, where English and Filipinos are used as medium in the classroom discussion. In addition, the migration of people from other regions due to the industrialization in the Kapampangan-speaking region led to the adaptation of the language used in other provinces by the natives. This also impacts the retention of cultural heritage as it represents the values, tradition, and worldviews of its speakers. The study actually analyzed this historical context and linguistic nuances of vocabulary entries to identify shifts and semantic connotations over time. Using the word list selected from words were taken from old dictionaries, poetries, essays, and other pertinent documents relevant to the study. Comparative analysis of historical meaning with contemporary ones identified instances of semantic changes of expansion were also utilized. The researcher also conducted interviews to 62 native Kapampangan speakers, elders who were 60 years old and above, and young adults aged 17 to 30 years old. The responses of these two generations were then compared and analyzed, identified new words being used, and compared the same from the historical text available from different libraries. A total of 31 towns were included across 5 provinces in Central Luzon. Since native speakers are concentrated in Pampanga, all towns and cities were included in the study. There were also 4 towns in the province of Tarlac, namely Tarlac City, Capas, Banban, and Concepcion. There were 3 towns in the province of Bataan that were included. These are Hermosa, Abucay, Dinalupihan. And 1 town included in the province of Bulacan, which is Calumpit, same as with the province of Nueva Ecija, which is the town of Cabiao. The study actually delves into the semantic evolution of Kapampangan lexicon, analyzing its term from historical sources dating back to the 1700s. The investigation also involved compiling words from the historical materials such as the dictionaries of Berganio, Parker, Di Malanta, form and format. And also, it extracted the vocabulary items and data were then examined and create a word list consisting of 458 items. It also discussed in this paper the socially embedded factors which might contribute to the change of vocabularies of the Kapampangans. These are language contact, societal interaction, and language uses. In addition, it also investigated the influence of linguistic evolution to the preservation of Kapampangan cultural heritage, scrutinizing the alteration of vocabulary and their effects to the transmission of traditional knowledge across different generations. The implication of industrial and technological advancement of the Kapampangan vocabularies evolution was also examined in this paper, focusing on the analysis of technological terminology and its influence to the language lexicon. Who are these Kapampangan? The Philippine archipelago is linguistically diverse, boasting its more or less 120 to 180 languages, according to Ethnologue in 2019. The country has rich linguistic history of interaction with various cultures such as Hokkien, Malayo-Polynesian, and of the Spanish. For more than 300 years of Spanish rule, on the other hand, the Spanish-American War in 1898 helped Filipinos gain their independence, leading to the establishment of democratic government and institutionalization of English government and education. That's according to Cruz in 2020, which later contributed to the way people communicate. The Kapampangan, who belong to ethno-linguistic group in the Philippines, primarily in the Central Plains of Luzon, numbered around 2 million in the early 21st century. Their language is closely related to Austronesian. It is also known as Pampango, Pampangueño, Pampangan. Kapampangan is actually grouped with Tagalog and the Pangasinan Sambal within Philippine 9 major languages. Most of the Kapampangan speakers are concentrated in the province of Pampanga. However, it is adjacent to Imperial Tagalog-speaking provinces. On its southern part, we have Bataan, Bulacan are situated, and Nueva Ecija in the northeast. Because of this geographical location, the Kapampangan, they were able to adapt some of their words. Language acquisition and assimilation. Despite the existence of the exact original Kapampangan words, the new generation of Kapampangan prefers to use Tagalog counterparts, words as seen in Table 1 and 4. This table actually presents vocabularies that have evolved and have been adapted from Tagalog. Based on the responses of young informants, it was found out that some Tagalog words have been integrated into Kapampangan. A significant phonological shift is observed based from the collected vocabularies, with the mid-central vowel a and evolving into the close backgrounded u. Or example, the turtle, which is actually pau and is pagong to the Kapampangan becomes pagung to the Kapampangan. Similarly, the ngungut or the coconut, which is niyog to the Tagalog, becomes niyu. The word duldul, thunder, which is kulog, turns into kulug and a lot more. Another noticeable change is the shift of the e to the sound e, sound as presented in the next table. The word ulan among the Kapampangan, which means worm in English, becomes bulati. Well, from Tagalog, it's bulate. The word asung, which is actually refers to the rice mortar called almires in Tagalog, becomes almiris. The word malyari, meaning possible, or puede in Tagalog, becomes puede. The word uwa or wa means yes and is equivalent to sometimes sige in Tagalog, becomes sigi, and a lot more. The interaction with the neighboring provinces of the Kapampangan, especially with the Tagalog-speaking provinces such as Bataan, Nueva Ecija, and Bulacan province, provide evidence that the Kapampangan language is evolving. This phenomenon is evident in the younger generation of the Kapampangans who incorporated Tagalog word into their speech, altering them to slightly to fit Kapampangan accentual patterns. Their adaptation of these words involves assimilation them thoroughly that they become a natural part of the Kapampangan lexicon. The borrowing of these Tagalog words is noticeable during the interview. Collected words from the next table presents the mentioned claims a while ago. The Kapampangan word kildup, for example, which means lighting in English, are equivalent to kidlat in Tagalog, but are pronounced the same by the new generation of Kapampangans, following Kapampangan accent. This is also true to the words bunanari or pinanari, which means rainbow in English. In Tagalog, word is bahaghari. And the new generation of Kapampangan uses the same way, but with Kapampangan accent, missing A, sounds baag-ari, and a lot more. The usage of the Kapampangan accent with the Tagalog word until they become inherently Kapampangan is a manifestation of the diversity of language. They can be mixed up anytime with the outsiders. Kapampangan language evolution. There are Kapampangan words that share the same spelling as of the Tagalog but have different accent, meaning, and context. However, These Tagalog turned Kapampangan vocabularies have been embraced by the Kapampangans and utilized over time, adopting its Tagalog meaning instead of the Kapampangans. This evolution of Kapampangan vocabularies may be attributed to the popularity of widespread use of Tagalog in the country. Next table actually presents the words which are shared the same spelling with the Tagalog but having different meaning with the Kapampangans, such as the word kalma, which means faith among the Kapampangans. But nowadays, it's just a relax in Tagalog, and it becomes relax as well among the Filipinos, among the Kapampangans. Ipis originally means deck of cards, now means cockroach. Batas or batas, referring to shortcut or passageway. That's why we have batasan barangay, something like that. Now means law, and so on. So speakers of these hybrid words don't even know that they have different meanings from the ancient Kapampangan words. Iconicity, the similarity between the words from its meaning, influences behavior in both the development of communicative symbols and language learning experiments. There are also what we call articulatory reduction. As might be expected, most sound changes have a physiological basis, since such sound changes typically results in articulatory simplification. They have traditionally been related to the idea of ease of articulation. Although this nation is difficult to define precisely, we can readily identify cases of articulatory simplification in our everyday speech, such as deletion of the consonant in a complex cluster, or some dialects that insertion of vowel to break up complex cluster. So next table actually presents the collection of words with a gradual phonological reduction. Kapampangan word ating, meaning older sister in English, becomes ati, NG was removed. The word maugtu, meaning lunch, became magtu, u or u was removed. The word intud or imtud, meaning me, becomes stood in and im were removed, and so on. So these changes actually do have a lot of reasons. So if we would take a look at it, there are causes of Kapampangan language change. Number one, exposure and mindset. During the interview with the informants, it was apparent that vocabulary related to carpentry, fisheries, farming, and other fields was not known to the younger generation, especially to those living in highly urbanized cities such as Angeles City, San Fernando, Mabalacat, and Tarlac City, where these skills are not actually really present. It is present, but rarely seen. It is also evident that exposure is important so that Kapampangan do not forget the vocabulary inherently theirs. It was also observed that the new generation of Kapampangan, specifically those from below average income families, no longer likes to work in the fields like rice fields, sugarcane, fisheries. They would rather pursue their careers in carpentry, work as laborers in firms and factories, or take jobs as welders, house painters, and skilled position. Other prefer scholar jobs such as staff position in offices, malls, call centers, and similar establishments in nearby cities. This mentality of ignoring what they have supposed to inherit may affect the transfer of vocabulary on the next generation. The mindset of middle-aged Kapampangan, where fluency in English and or Tagalog is deemed superior to the proficiency of the Kapampangan language. This is why their children are often taught to speak English or Tagalog instead of their native tongue at home. This belief leads Kapampangan in general to think that speaking these languages fluently will make them appear more intelligent among their friends and relatives and to the people around them. As a result, elders and parents alike communicate with their grandchildren and children in English and Tagalog instead of the Kapampangan. Elderly informants revealed that some children can understand Kapampangan because they hear their elders using the language. However, they struggle to speak Kapampangan themselves. And in addition, children prefer to watch English movies and enjoy listening to music composed by modern artists. Few local television stations use the local language. If they do, they often mix Kapampangan with the Tagalog and English with their Kapampangan reporting. The aforementioned predicament is a manifestation of a hindrance to the preservation of Kapampangan vocabularies. Another thing is the policies that we have at present. Strong language policies and guidelines for safeguarding local languages in the country is actually needed to protect and preserve them. However, Filipino and Tagalog are widely used as a medium of instruction in schools because of policy being imposed by DepEd and CHED. This mandate suppresses Kapampangan language, and the use of this language promotes the adaptation of words and phrases. Also, political factors may also be influenced in the vocabulary shift of the Kapampangan language in local government offices. For instance, their posters, their memoranda, their certificates, and other pertinent documents are written in English with nothing written in local language. Based on the observations also, employees in the local government units uses 3 languages, Kapampangan, Tagalog, and English. There are also few activities and programs intended for the preservation of the Kapampangan language, which such as creation of literacy contests in Kapampangan arts like poetry, short stories, play, and etc. These are rarely seen in sometimes removed from local programs and are not celebrated or appreciated in the province. Instead, there are preference for dance, example, festival, modern dances, hip-hop dances, and singing contests in Tagalog or English. This is probably because due to the lack of Kapampangan songs suitable for singing contests. Additionally, the host or masters of ceremonies at the event are often use English or Filipino Tagalog instead of the local language. The technological innovation and industrialization and modernization. The old ways of farming were upgraded due to the fast innovation in the technology and industrialization. The old farming practices were replaced by modernization, and they are no longer in use. Due to this, some words were replaced by new ones and eventually became weak, known only to the elders. This innovation affects Kapampangan language since the region is a farm region. Example, for this, the Gareta or the Carabao carriage, which have been replaced by trucks, the manual labor in agriculture has been substituted with large-scale machinery. Added to this, call center industries have proliferated like mushrooms, attracting college graduates to work as a representatives. They prefer the use of language spoken in their company, which is English, even when they are at home. Malls are sprouting as well like mushrooms in the progressive cities of the province, such as in San Fernando, in Mexico, Clarkfield, and Angeles City, as well as in Tarlac City. Despite this having few staff and employees for non-Kapampangan speaking provinces, they may still influence the use of Kapampangan language. Many fields have been converted into government housing projects and private subdivisions, attracting non-Kapampangan tenants from nearby provinces who intend to work in the cities. The introduction of the new concepts and terminologies due to technological advancement significantly influences the language. The development of the new words on the World Wide Web, such as digital, email, websites, search engines, and the app, and had similar impact in the Philippine setting due to the rapid growth of social media. Words such as eme, charot, sana all, me, charis, and a lot more have developed and become popular expression among the people which were previously absent from the lexicon of the earlier generation. Unfortunately, innovation, in technology often leads to obsolescence of some native vocabularies because it is no longer relevant in the current setting. It adapts and acquires some popular vocabulary to give new meaning in the context of technology. The globalization of technological terms, particularly in the digital age, can result in the gradual replacement of native words with loan words or translation. Further, technological integration into daily life may lead to the evolution of language skills, including digital literacy. In conclusions, the contact with the different languages and cultures and the proximity to the Tagalog-speaking provinces affects Kapampangan language. Despite of being one of the major languages of the Philippines, the younger generation has adapted and assimilated Tagalog words, along with significant phonological shift. The Tagalog population is larger and outnumbers the Kapampangans. Similarly, close geographical proximity of the Kapampangans to the Tagalog-speaking provinces, such as Bataan, Bulacan, and Nueva Ecija, significantly influences the Kapampangan language, leading to linguistic erosion within the Kapampangan linguistic concept, with some phrases bearing resemblance to the Tagalog lexicon. One of the factors responsible for the evolution of the Kapampangan language is its interaction with the other languages in the earlier eras throughout Spanish 300-year rule in the Philippines. They unintentionally introduce a multitude of words and terms such as bangko, lamesa, empanada, and others. The cultural elements such as Catholicity, feast day, celebration, and other rituals of the Filipinos. On the other hand, the English language introduced by the Americans is now widely used in all government offices, non-government organizations, private offices, educational institutions, and etc. The gradual obliteration of the Kapampangan language may also be attributed to the use of both English and Filipino as a primary medium of instruction in educational institutions. Similarly, books written in these languages are also used in schools. Additionally, different government documents such as memoranda, contracts, and other related records, like public announcements such as street signs and notices, are also written in English and Filipino. The younger generations use of Kapampangan language illustrates most linguistic assimilation and phonological evolutions and assimilations. There were sound change, ease of articulation. They showed a tendency to assimilate Tagalog terminology into their speech and adapt it to meet Kapampangan phonological patterns. The mentality of some Kapampangan that their own language is less important compared to Tagalog and English is further reinforced by the influence of social media and technology. The younger generation growing interest in creating content in English or reach broader international audience contribute to this belief. This reflect their this reflected in their code mixing words with the Tagalog and English during their conversation, similar to how they teach their children to use these languages like English and Tagalog in their everyday conversation. In the traditional fields such as farming, carpentry, and fisheries, Kapampangan vocabularies are gradually weakening and nearing eventual extinction. These are merely the result of modernization and industrialization. This phenomenon is largely linked to shifting societal perspective towards traditional practices alongside influence of the technological advancement and innovation. The Kapampangan language, with its diversity and ability to adapt, has seen some words being reborn, finding a space in the vocabulary of the youth, while others have been absorbed and hybridized with the Tagalog, reflecting Kapampangan's continuous growth and evolution. Thank you very much, and these are my references.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ariel. It was very interesting to trace Kapampangan vocabulary in the digital age. Especially, it's not really often talked about. As you mentioned, it isn't really a topic that we're very familiar with because in many ways it's being forgotten or even neglected. Thank you very much for this sharing that you opened our eyes even more to this truth. Now, thank you very much to all our three wonderful speakers. And I know that we have some burning questions that we've been waiting and wanting to ask. We open the floor for questions and a few insights, maybe a bit of reflection from anyone of the audience. You may either raise your hand, we will acknowledge and ask you to turn on your microphone, or you may chat your questions or enter it in the Q&A portion. While they are still typing and thinking of their questions, I do have some sent. We have for Mr. Chris. Hi, sir. Sir Chris.
Yes po, I'm here.
Okay, thank you very much. We have two questions right now. Number one, how does your study overlap with the ongoing happenings in Cebu and all over the country, amidst the natural calamities and the flood control scandals?
Sorry po, medyo mahina yung internet ko, medyo choppy. Ano po yung sabi niya? Sorry.
How do you think your study overlaps with the ongoing crisis in, the natural calamities with the flood control scandals?
Actually, hindi siya nag-overlap. Actually, it may add additional some interpretation and construction of meanings that it will depend on the trending posts online. Actually, mas madami na nga ngayon. That was 2024. We're now in 2025. Many memes are being posted now online in portraying resilience daw. Specifically during the times of crisis, typhoons, natural calamities, and the like, especially nowadays, recently, and the very controversial flood control projects, there are a lot. Probably it will add more. I will search the technique kasi, the method I have used during finding for a certain image trend is to search or hashtag resiliency of the Filipino people. And after typing those are the photos na lumitaw para i-analyze ko. That is also the suggestion of my advisor for my paper. So doon pa yon, that was last year. So probably this year or next year, kung magta-type ako ng resiliency of the Filipino people, Facebook images or different images or even motion pictures, probably it will add more on how do people interpret or give meanings to different resilience images or resiliency of the Filipino images in different media platforms. Meron pa po ba?
I do have one more, and
Yes, po.
maybe more will be coming in. What do you think do these resilience pictures reflect more? So there's three things I can name. First is strong and effective visual communication, or the artistic and unique angles that Filipinos view life, or is it more of the Philippines' cultural identity of resilience and taking things lightly, or even the familial importance?
Actually, nung ginagawa ko yan, parang even the definition through text, many reading materials I have seen, pag sinabi natin resiliency kasi ang meaning lang niyan is how to cope up, our coping mechanism when it comes to facing different challenges in our life. So probably most of that's the basic definition. No, ang base sa pagse-search ko, pag sinabing resiliency nowadays, it's all about parang into parang how to escapism na. Kung nakita niyo yung mga images kanina, in order to face the challenges, ang pagiging resilient nila is to drink alcoholic beverage is to earn money, no? Not even to just to survive. Kahit nga binabagyo, nagtitinda or naglalako ng tindahan, ganon. Pero iniisip ko, baka magbabago na rin yan ang definition. I mean, there is also another definition of resilience. Parang nag-shift na ng konti ang basic definition ng resiliency based on the image trends or the visuals na nakikita natin online. Parang ang resiliency ng mga Filipino ngayon is for just to entertain, parang pakita na resiliency is to just to be happy, just to serve, maging masaya kahit kahit mahirap ang buhay, kailangan man nilang maging masaya. Hindi man makapag-survive eh. I mean, parang wala na lang sa kanila yung mga, and it will lead to na parang pinagtatakpan natin yung government, yung kakulangan ng government officials, mga government system na kailangan. Yun yung napansin ko talaga na kapag nagsesearch ka ng resiliency, napapansin parang mga memes na lang ang resiliency of the Filipino people eh. Tendency, it will lead to hindi na nabibigyan ng pansin talaga ang kakulangan ng mga government officials para hindi na tayo ganon, parang bumalik na ulit sa dating definition ng resiliency yung definition niya. Hindi na for entertainment lang, hindi for memes lang ang resiliency. Ang gusto ko sana, it's like the resiliency is the definition should be how people would cope up together with the government officials, together with the government system that we have. Hindi yung just for the sake na giinom lang sila, maglilitsyon, yung ganon sana. Kapag kasi puro ganon, talagang ang resiliency of the Filipino is for fun, for fun or for entertainment purposes. Sana magbago yung mga images pero meron ako nakikita ngayon, ang resiliency ng Filipino ngayon is also will lead to online bayanihan. Kung mapapansin nyo, there are some image trends ngayon na kapag nasira, for example, dahil yung paninda niya ay yung tirahan niya or yung paninda niya nasira because of bagyo, nakikita ko yung mga comments, anong GCash niyo po? There is an online bayanihan. Probably that's also part of definition of resiliency that will lead to online bayanihan. Sana ganun, no? Sana ganun na lang. Hindi na lang for entertainment. Yung kasing sa akin, more on how to cope up, specifically escapism, no? Yon.
Totoo, sir, no? Na-notice natin yung shift ng definition from something na survival, na naging escapism, na naging sarcasm, na naging mockery, na it's going back to asking, demanding for accountability.
Yes.
Nagbabago na talaga yung meaning. Depende kung nasaan tayo sa life ngayon. Thank you very much, Sir Chris. We also have questions for Dame. First is, what do you have to say about the ongoing discourse on Pampanga as the cultural food capital of the Philippines, but it's being missed out by Michelin?
Okay. Di ba clarify ko lang yung last month lang yan, no? Yung Michelin. And then sa Manila siya, halos.
Opo, yung sa parang small karinderya something sa Quezon City, I think.
I cannot say sa Michelin na ba kasi limited lang yung yung area na pinuntahan nila, so di ko sure on their side how they decided on which parts of the Philippines they went to. In terms of Pampanga naman kasi, I think naman, we're Kapampangans and people in Pampanga are very assured naman of themselves with their culinary prowess. Kasi even years since 2010s, even with Mayor Pogi's term, they've already been participating in world competitions and even awards last last year nanalo sila dun sa Asia's ano kasi yung ano yung parang rising culinary tourist destination. So in that sense, yung reputation of Angeles City in particular going global, it's an ongoing project and aspiration for our city. I guess siguro personally na lang. I guess hindi naman namin kailangan masyado yung ano. Although it's good na there may recognition na yung Michelin sa mga karinderya, no, doesn't have to be here in Pampanga but in the Philippines kasi recently there has been this parang conversations about Filipino cuisine in US, di ba? Halos kasi Thai food, Chinese, Japanese, but what about Filipino? And then this kind of recognition is as a nation is ano rin naman, it's great. Yun. We have here in Angeles City, we have different kinds of dining places, so karinderya for public and even high dining with international chefs din naman. So in itself, it's already thriving and people who know what Angeles City can offer, no, they don't have to refer to Michelin ratings to appreciate and visit the city. Yun lang po.
Agree. It's really the locals know where to go, what to get, no? Additional question din, ano yung common observation sa mga tourists naman, regardless kung international or from other provinces, ano yung mas pinupuntahan nila if you have an observation? Kung more on yung mga traditional food, Kapampangan cuisine, or yung mga trendy, mas mga innovative dishes, alin ang mas popular ngayon?
I based on my personal observations lang, no, but Sir Ariel and other ano rin sa audience, no, may share, especially those who are extroverted. I guess here kasi mas marami akong nakikitang tourist sa Clark. So apart from restaurants, there are also other entertainment activities kasi sa Clark, tsaka it's also a business hub na rin, economic zone na rin. But also there are for example, other tourists kasi might want to try international food as well. So there's a Korean town here in Friendship. So if they wanted to try out Korean cuisine, you can just go to Friendship Highway. So there are a lot of options there. In other areas here, bandang Nepo. So there are a lot of dining places there as well, especially right now mas nag-upscale na rin yung area because of Rockwell. So there are more chances or opportunities for tourists to visit and try out different kinds of places, dining places there kasi it's not just upscale, meron din namang karinderya, meron din other kinds of eatery. So you can just go there and sample everything right away.
Okay, thank you very much, Dave. We also have questions for Dr. Ariel. Medyo may intersection ito with the food topic of Dave, no? Did you include words related to food in your study? Kung meron man po, did you have significant findings in relation to them, which you can share to us?
Relating to food, well, actually, not food, but the time when they eat. Example, I still recall this word, manabak. Manabak for some, if you would take a look at it, for those who are living in the cities like San Fernando, of Angeles City, of Mabalacat, when you say the word manabak, they're thinking of the word abak. But it's not breakfast. Kasi the word abak, ma'am, means morning. However, when you hear the word manabak to some provinces, because the word abak itself is morning, but in reality, its word is actually meant for early lunch. So that's one. We are fond of food. Eh. We also made researches about Kapampangan food. I still remember that. Um, this bobotu, for example, we call it bobotu, meaning it is actually tamales among the Tagalog people. They call it Tagalog. But right now, the language actually changes, and most of the young ones, they know it as tamales. But if you would take a look at the etymological origin of this word tamales, it came from Spanish, and it is made up of corn and all, and etc. etc. But among the Kapampangan, no, this tamales has historical significance. Long ago, it is only us who calls it boboto. The story about this dish is that long ago daw, there are this group of women. Well, to tell you, ma'am, no, among Kapampangan, mas marami naman ng babaeng nagluluto. So long ago daw, merong mga babaeng, mga nanay na they gathered together, no? They gathered together, and then they talk about kung ano ang magiging laman ng kanilang boboto. So, they voted kung what would be the laman. Kaya nga, if you would take a look at it, our boboto, the boboto of San Fernando, of Angeles, and of the other places in the province, of other towns and cities, they just have what? Because long ago, they voted for that. So kaya nga we call it boboto instead of tamales. I think it is known as tamales. Eh. But some words are dying actually if you would take a look at it. And sometimes I really felt bad no kapag there are some reporters presenting yung sa mga I'm not against with it. I'm okay that they speak about this and that. Kasi may mga nakikita mga vlogs, something like that. Like for example, they are vlogging foods and all, no? Sometimes their accent is not Kapampangan. They don't parang their Kapampangan when they vlog this food and all. They don't ano ba 'yon? Parang hindi siya hindi siya Kapampangan accent, and they mix up with other languages that we have. Yun po. So there are just some. Yes, we have made researches about some foods, but not thoroughly. Yan po.
Okay, may nabanggit kayo, sir, about yung pagboto ng kababaihan tungkol dito sa
Yes,
sa
ma'am.
food na ginagawa nila. I'd also like to tap on the topic of gender, sexuality, and class. Meron po ba tayong na-observe na emerging Kapampangan language online na may kinalaman sa gender, sexuality, and things like this? May na-observe na po ba tayo?
I think wala naman akong na-observe about that, about gender sexuality on, parang it's just the same. Kasi social media, it doesn't have a gender, right? So we can parang, everybody can do it, and I think wala namang ganun. It's just my perception.
Okay, so thank you. We also have a question for both Doc Ariel and Dame. But Sir Chris, you're very much welcome to include your insights. Are there relevant shifts observed in cultures, like in language, food, and identity, given that Angeles City apparently is a top destination for Koreans? Given the observed reference to Korean culture, what are the cultural dynamics which can be captured nowadays in relation to the local?
Can I?
Sure, go ahead, sir.
Okay, sige. Is there relevant shift observed in the culture, like language? Yes, there are. There is already. Is it shifting? Yes, it is, especially to those who belong to the um, middle income family, yung mga anak ng medyo elitista at saka yung mga above average. Because they don't use anymore they prefer Tagalog and English, I think. I presume, no? If you would observe our kids here at AUF, they speak English. So there's a shift already. When you talk, a while ago, I was talking to somebody and he speaks Kapampangan. Nabigla ako, parang ako pa yung, sabi ko, ba, kagaling mo magkapampangan, galing mo magkapampangan, sabi ko, I'm so amazed. Ako pa yung, kasi with the setup of our school, parang it's not very often that you will hear them speaking in vernacular, in our own language. So yes, there are shifts already. Kapampangan is shifting and mixing, and I hope it will not going to die. I hope it will not. Yan lamang po.
Yes. Thank you
To
very
add, bago ako magsalita, Dave, no? To add, kasi pumupunta ako ng Angeles. Alam nyo ba, sorry pumupunta ako ng Angeles para hindi kumain ng aling lusing sisig. Pumupunta ako ng Angeles to buy Korean products, Korean meat, Korean snacks. Kaya totoo yan siguro, no? Mas madami ang mga Korean stores sa Angeles compare sa mga authentic, I mean, I don't know, no? Authentic Kapampangan food. They
To add to Doc Ariel's and Sir Chris's answers, actually, Sir Chris can relate because we were classmates in undergrad. So, before we had Korean classmates in college, so it's not already new for us. Pero during that time, ayoko na lang banggitin yung taon. Hindi pa ganun kalaganap yung Hallyu, yung Korean wave. So parang kami, payod yun, may mga ganun na ano. And then post, I think 2010, dun pa lang nag-pick up yung Korean wave. So dito, dito mas nagiging familiar na yung mga Filipino sa Korean culture. Pero kaya nade-develop na rin yung mga ibang spaces here in Angeles City, kaya meron ng Korean Town. Before, when we were in college, hindi pa siya ganun laganap. Although there have already been communities at the time, ngayon naging commercial na lang siya halos. In terms of language din kasi to share, just like Sir Ariel's, we had previously a Korean student in COM here. You would not know based on her features na marunong siyang magtagalog. So, tsaka Kapampangan. So, pag kinakausap namin siya, tinatagalog na lang namin siya. Mas madalang pa namin marinig siya nagko-Korean. So, even we have students who wanted to learn Korean language. So we had students who tried to talk to other Korean students in Korean. We also had a few Korean students as well who are speaking in Tagalog, sometimes Kapampangan as well. So I guess the dynamics would be a little more on Korean kasi because of the globalization and popular culture. So they have more, I guess, they're weightier in that sense. Pero in terms of interpersonal interaction, there is a degree of reciprocation din naman. So nag-shift din naman yung nagko-collide yung mga ganun na observations out of personal experiences din.
Okay, thank you very much. I guess that wraps up our open forum session. Thank you very, very much once again to our speakers, and thank you very much also to the participants for this rich exchange of ideas. At this point, we take the time to recognize the invaluable contributions of our resource persons. So PAC-MRI proudly awards the certificates of appreciation to our distinguished speakers. The Philippine Association for Communication and Media Research Incorporated awards this certificate of appreciation to Chris M. Balingit, MC LPT, Dame B. Avelino, MA, and Ariel T. Gutierrez, PhD, in recognition of their valuable time and expertise as resource speaker for the masterclass titled Cultural Signs and Changing Times, D, and Reconstructing Language and Heritage in Pampanga. This live event is held online and is part of the PAC-MRI 2025 Masterclass series, given this 14th day of November 2025, signed Maria Rosel S. San Pascual, PhD, President, PAC-MRI, and Noel Sajid I. Murad, PhD candidate, Director of Research, PAC-MRI. Now, let's take this opportunity to take a group photo. I would like to invite everyone to please turn their cameras on so we can take a group picture. Okay, so we'll be taking okay, big smiles, everyone. Taking the picture in 3, 2, 1. Okay, kami hahabol. Another picture in 3, 2, 1. And for the next panel, also taking a picture. Please hold your smiles. 1, 2, 3. Last slide. 1, 2, 3. Okie dokie. To close our program, I now call on Assistant Professor Noel Sajid Murad, the PAC-MRI Director for Research, for his closing remarks.
Thank you very much to our dear speakers for graciously accepting our invitation for this special PAC-MRI class by Angeles University Foundation. As we come to the end of today's masterclass, we find ourselves enriched by a deeper appreciation of how culture, language, and heritage come together and continue to evolve, especially here in Pampanga, a province whose identity remains as vibrant and dynamic as its people. Our three speakers have offered a distinct yet interconnected ways of understanding the Kapampangan experience in contemporary times. Prof. Chris reminded us that what we see and share online are not just images, but cultural mirrors revealing how Filipinos construct hope, humor, and endurance in the face of adversity. Prof. Dane showed us that Kapampangan cuisine is not only a matter of taste, but also of storytelling, where every dish becomes a declaration of place, pride, and creativity. And finally, Dr. Ariel revealed how language lives and breathes with technology, where digital spaces are not threats to local languages, but rather opportunities for reinvention and continuity, where Kapampangan vocabulary can adapt, evolve, and thrive in the modern world. Together, these talks illuminate the theme of our masterclass today. They remind us that heritage is not static. It is a living dialogue between past and present, between tradition and innovation. So thank you once again to our amazing speakers. Thank you also to Raya for helping host and moderate the session. I'm sure we had a very fruitful and enriching discussion in the open forum. Apologies I wasn't able to join this as I'm currently in the recognition rights of De La Salle University. Nonetheless, I'd like to take this opportunity to acknowledge all our institutional partners who are present with us in today's Zoom Masterclass. We have a few more sessions in store for you, so please do follow and like our Facebook page to stay updated. Our next Masterclass will be on November 21 with our friends and partners from the Iloilo Media Council and West Visayas State University. For those of you who still aren't members, we hope you can consider joining PACMRI and take this journey with us of developing a community of media and communication scholars studying the Philippines and the Filipinos. On behalf of PACMRI, thank you once again for spending your afternoon with us. Have a great day ahead.